Hey guys, Palsteron here, and today let's talk about the fastest build I've ever played in Path of Exile 2. This is a quarterstaff build featuring Tempest Flurry as its main skill, both damage dealer and also propellant forward. So basically, a lot of people right now are focused on movement speed to get their endgame characters faster, make more currency, but there is another variable to this. There are skills in this game that have a forward movement whenever you press them. For example, Tempest Flurry or Molten Burst or stuff like Bone Shatter. And you can use this forward motion to basically accelerate yourself to speed numbers that are higher than the movement speed that you could get on all your gear pieces could ever achieve. But how do you achieve such attack speed numbers? We're talking 15, 16 or higher attacks per second depending on the skill that you're using, while using the notable Falcon Dive on the passive tree. It gives you 1% attack speed per 250. And while that may not seem impressive, there's some new tech there. Now, this League Resolute technique got changed. At first, it sounded like a nerf. Instead of hits can't be evaded, you now have double accuracy, so you still have to invest a little bit. But for this build, it gives me around about 50% more attack speed. On top of that, we have Heightened Accuracy 2, which gives me 50% more accuracy, which is around about 30% more attack speed. We then have the new Rigwald's Ferocity Gem, which gives me, once again, 15% more attack speed. And we have Rage Free, which gives me 15% more attack speed. Couple that with the fact that Quarterstaff's got a really sick new base. This Quarterstaff is ridiculous. Its base stats are around about 30% more physical damage than the next best one, but it comes with the caveat that you have no crit chance on it, which doesn't matter for us because we already take Resolute Technique, which also means we cannot crit. This one also comes with higher base attack speed, 1.5 instead of 1.4. Now, you might be asking why Tempest Flurry though, why quarterstaffs? Obviously, the staff base I just showed you is absolutely cracked, but there's more to it. Tempest Flurry just deals a ton of damage just on its own without any support, but it also got new support in the reworked Staggering Palm. So this is the projectiles that you see around my character, the sand blasts going out. That is the Staggering Palm buff, and it used to be really clunky because you had these pockets of 7.5 seconds where you had the buff, then you had to do it again, and you have to heavy stun an enemy to activate it. And now what you can do is you can actually ramp it up to 30 seconds. But not only that, they changed how its damage works. It used to be base flat damage, completely separate from what your weapon did, and now it is percentage of your weapon, which means with something like the Dreaming Quarterstaff we just talked about, the damage more than doubled, almost tripled to last League. On top of that, we have the Nova projectiles added this patch, which does give a huge damage less multiplier, but basically turns Staggering Palm into this absolute clear speed machine, 360 degrees around you. As for Titan, well, you are in the warrior area anyways, so it doesn't cost you anything to path extra. You have 50% increased effect of small nodes, which includes all of the small accuracy passives that you're taking, which gets converted to attack speed, remember. And then we have just so much heavy stun support, which means that Staggering Palm is even more consistent, and on top of that, everything around you is permanently stunned and takes 50% more damage. The single target damage is very decent, with Voltaic Mark on your offhand doing a ton of work. Since your main skill Tempest Flurry is already lightning, you don't really have to do much other than that. And obviously, we throw the usual Tempest Bell in for some extra damage. There is a downside to this build though, which is that it doesn't really scale gradually. It very much goes like this with currency invested, meaning that you don't want to pick this as your first build, maybe not even your second depending on it. It is very much aspirational and kind of like the build where you put all your currency in and you get an absolute monster of a build. And the problem with budget versions of this build is they look playable on paper because you can still get a ton of attack speed. You're still going to be zoomy, but you need the damage to back it up. If you're really fast, but you're not actually killing stuff on the way, then that's not very impressive. You're gonna have to backtrack again and like wait, and then what like good does the speed even do? And now to the most important question, which is how the hell do you get the mana sorted out? And that is with Constricting Command. The unique that makes it so you always count as surrounded. This makes it so you can use Defy 2, which basically means that whenever you go to 0 mana, if something is supported with Defy 2, even if there was a mana cost, there actually isn't. And this is exactly why the build looks so ridiculous. It's because I don't need to leech mana. I don't need to walk and then wait for a pack. It is very smooth. It is a one-button playstyle where you sometimes press your buff, but otherwise you don't have to think about these sort of things. Your mana is solved. With that said though, let's get into the details in the video. First skills, our main damage dealer is Tempest Flurry. It is also our main movement skill, as you can see right here. This will get faster when I have a frenzy charge. It will get faster if I get headhunter buffs, but this is in general how it will look like with my current setup. You have Defy 2, so you don't pay any mana. You can see a trickle down to 0. Nothing happens. We're good. Heightened Accuracy, which gives us more accuracy, which transitions into more attack speed, like I said, with the Falcon Dive passive point. We have Rigwell's Ferocity, which it is very important that you assign it to weapon slot 1, so you get the more attack speed and not the more damage. More attack speed, less damage, kind of evens out, but you're a lot faster, which means triggering more Staggering Palms. Rage 3, you get more attack speed while you're not at maximum rage, but 5 rage on melee hit. Now, in reality, a lot of people use this in conjunction with other supports that remove rage, or they use hate forges or whatever, but this just kind of works out. While you're on the move, your rage will immediately trickle down, and since you don't hit that much with your actual melee hit, while you're in combat, it doesn't matter. You get the full 30% more damage from rage. You don't need to screw around with this. It is always up when you need it, which is when you're moving around. So don't get in your head about hate forge unless you have a really good idea on how to use it. After that, we have Rakiata's Flow, which is currently completely, utterly broken. Now, it is kind of hard to notice on a lot of maps because enemies don't have that much resistances, but then there will be that one or the other rare that will just get absolutely annihilated. So kind of see it as evening the playing field, where all of a sudden a lot of rares become white monsters. And in endgame, resistance modifier is a rarity modifier, which means that you really, like half of your maps or more are going to have resistances, and this more than doubles your damage in those maps. And if you can't afford one, the next best support is Crescendo 3, which makes your strikes ancestrally boosted, which, yeah, it will just result into a huge extra hit and just a ton of extra clear speed because of the extra strikes that you get from it. But do realize that you will need some kind of penetration, either with Forces of Nature or Flash Storm, until you have Rakiatas. Our other main skill is Staggering Palm. This is, like I said, the buff. This TPs you towards an enemy and then applies the buff if you heavy stun that enemy, and it can stack. You will see it up top right here. Let's just real quickly go to a few enemies. So I will jump in there. You can see the buff up top. It goes higher and higher, and it stops at 30 seconds. That is its max, as you can see right here. Now, what sometimes will happen is the projectiles will kind of kill the enemies before you can do it. Then just wait until it trickles down to 0 and do it all over again. I would kind of get into a rhythm of doing it every 30 seconds. And once you have the buff up, this is what happens, right? Now, every single attack, no matter how small, no matter if it's just like a tiny Tempest Flurry, will put out the projectiles, and the projectiles don't scale with Tempest Flurry. They scale with Staggering Palm, which is also off of your weapon over here with 209%. We have Nova projectiles, which is why it's kind of spreading out in a 360 degree. You can swap this out on single target, but it's usually not necessary in my opinion. Same thing with Ricochet. This one is insane. Maybe I'll get towards a wall somewhere and I can show it to you. So you can see the environmental objects, it's kind of just like chaining around, and that is because of the 50% wall chain from Ricochet. You will especially love this in indoor maps, which is usually not something this build excels at because there's a lot of things where you can get stuck to, but Ricochet is just incredible. Heft for some extra damage. Ulnatol's Embrace is just there because there's not that many supports. Do remember that Staggering Palm doesn't have any conversion, so you can't use any of the elemental things, which is also why Rakiatas in Tempest Flurry is perfect, because you can only use it once, right? So you have your Tempest Flurry completely fixed, and then Staggering Palm is mostly just physical damage anyways, and you have to put Defy into every single skill that you don't want to pay mana for. Then we have Bell, and I'm pretty sure you guys know what Bell is at this point, but I'll just put it down. You can see the combo points down here, right? You get them whenever you hit something with a melee attack, and then you plop it down, and whenever you hit the bell, you can see it ringing, and it rings up to a certain point, and all of those bell swings deal extra damage. You only use this on single target if there's like a super harsh rare maybe, but at my gear point that will never be necessary, only on really rough bosses. And once again, we have Defy, so we don't pay mana. We have Overabundance, so we can put down 2. We have Heavy Swing, more damage. Concentrate Area, more damage. Close Combat, more damage. Herald of Thunder is here as a little bit of extra clear. It's not that important, but it definitely does serve its purpose. Elemental Armaments, Elemental Focus, Lightning Attunement, Overreach for a little bit of extra AoE, and then Lightning Pin, because once again, I can't use Rakiata's Flow more than once. Then we have Wind Dancer, which uses Culmination. Now, all you have to know here is that this is a combo with Alim's Chimes to sometimes when you get hit and the Wind Dancer procs, it gives you power charges, which we can't really do much with, but with this support, I have a chance to get a Frenzy Charge or an Endurance Charge, and those are important in a second. And then I have Precision 1 and Precision 2. You put 1 in Charge Regulation and 1 in Wind Dancer, doesn't really matter. You can stack 1s and 2s in case you didn't know, for a total of 80% increased accuracy. Charge Regulation is the other aura, and this one gives us more skill speed while you have a Frenzy Charge, and it doesn't happen all that often. I understand. I don't have it always up, okay? But it sometimes happens, and it's worth to do this just because it sometimes happens, because 15% more is incredible. On top of that, I'm also using Valako's Roar, which whenever you get hit from lightning grants a frenzy charge. And we have passive point right here, which is Catalysis, which gives you a chance that you take lightning damage. It's a random element. If you choose a lightning, then it consumes this one and you get a frenzy charge, even if just for a little bit. That extra speed is really nice. Charge regulation also gives us 20% more defenses, which counts for our evasion. So while we're in maps, this evasion is going to be more like 76-ish. And yeah, endurance charges are a lot easier to get because we actually always have them. Because of cranial impact, get endurance charge when you heavy stun a rare or unique enemy, which is literally always. And at the end, we have Voltaic Mark. This was kind of just my answer to another button to press on single target. As you can see, there are two skills open if you have any ideas. I wanted to try some combo setups like some of the monks do, with like combo and like a Tempest Flurry one-shot, but that doesn't really matter and wasn't really necessary at some point because I already dealt so much damage just with my auto-attacking. But yeah, I don't have access to frenzy to power charges, and it doesn't really work on weapon swap. I tried it out. Combo goes away if you weapon swap, so it was just kind of awkward. But if you guys can come up with something, GG's. Voltaic Mark, this is my weapon swap as well. So I have this one as my only skill on weapon swap 2. Everything else is on weapon swap 1, and the auras are on both. So Voltaic Mark with Mark for Death, Prolonged Duration, Lightning Mastery, and Life Tap. Life Tap is just because the other skills will get me to 0. So if I ever have to reapply the mark, I don't want to get into any awkward situations. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't really do any harm. But and on the passive tree, I have this weapon swap right here. I path up here and take all the mark related nodes. I've done this very recently, so I don't know if all of these actually snapshot from that tree. I know the mark effect works, but I don't know about stuff like enemies that are marked gain or whatever. I'm not 100% sure. I have to test that out a little bit more. Like I said, you can experiment around with your weapon swap if you want to. As for Ascendancies, I'll tell you why I went Titan and what else you can go for if you want to. The effect of small passive skills is just incredible. If you look at all these nodes, they basically get doubled, right? So instead of 8% accuracy, 12, 12, 12, all the small nodes instead of 15, 22, it goes on and on and on. And I don't know what else to say. There's no magic to it. It's just extremely, extremely efficient. The small nodes are strength, which is nice, and you get the backpack. Now, the backpack is actually really nice because you're crafting a lot while mapping, and you're throwing currency orbs and things. So having everything in here to make your inventory a little bit more tidy is actually, like, in my opinion, great. The other thing is you have a stun theme already with Staggering Palm, and Crushing Blows and Surprising Strength plays right into that. So it only works if you heavy stun, and people have tried this out in other classes, and it's a little bit less consistent. I'm not going to say you can't do it. You have stun 2 support, for example, that you can do, but overall, Titan just fits perfectly, like absolutely perfectly. And you would want to path up here anyways. You're at Resolute Technique anyway, so Warrior is actually alongside Mercenary the best start. Other choices I haven't made for various reasons. I'm not going to go all over, but Gemling, decent. Witch Hunter, just for Explodey alone. If you're going for an only mapping setup where you basically do nothing else, Explodey is obviously ridiculous, especially against Abyss. You can go Huntress for the extra ring slot that will make resistances and attributes a lot easier. Although the problem is after that, you're kind of running dry, but it's definitely decent. Deadeye kind of works with everything. And everything else, you're just, like, it just doesn't really fit into the build, right? Like, if you look at my pathing, if you go further up, you're going to have inefficiencies. All right, now I'll show you the build in 3 different variations and how you kind of play it. The first one will be super juiced. The second one will be a pathing map, which is basically, if you want to get to a tower setup or you want to get somewhere, you just throw in maps that are not terrible. They will drop a little bit, but suboptimal, obviously. And then I will show you a Xesh 3 showcase. So first, for the juiced map, we have 140 rarity. This was made with an Omen of Rarity. We have Delirious, right, with the Paranoia, extra rare monsters, and fully modded, obviously, with 1 portal. So we'll quickly do that, and we'll get a juicy one. This is a setup from one of my 3 towers. This gives a ton of extra loot, so let's see if we can farm some tinks. Now, this is a perfect layout to showcase because there's stretches of this map that are very good, and there's stretches that are not so good. This is, once again, everything that's on the map. So we'll go in and we'll just hold down left mouse button and sometimes press right mouse button to get our buff up. Voltaic Mark, we're probably never going to use. Tempest Spell, I don't know if there's a boss. There's no boss, but we're going to do Xesh later. Oh, we already got something. Yeah, pretty nice. Pretty nice. Not bad. Not bad. First thing. All right, let's go. So you're basically just gonna waltz around, and now I applied the buff, and you can see the projectiles kind of flying out. Now, currently I am, let's see, my attack speed, I usually wouldn't do this, obviously, 17.86. So I have the attack speed buff from Headhunter, but not the accuracy buff. You will very clearly see if I ever get the accuracy buff. I can also unequip Headhunter. I don't think that should be an issue, and I'll show you that in the second stretch of the map. But yeah, this is what you do. For breaches, it is extremely nice because you're so fast around. So even in bad layouts, you can kind of just like glide through. So right now, I'm basically just pressing one button. Now I'm refreshing my buff. You can see it's 13 seconds again. And whenever I see more mobs, then you do it again. But like I said, the problem can be that sometimes the projectiles are just too fast because Headhunter also gives projectile speed if you have Headhunter or not. But I will, for the second half, just remove Headhunter because obviously Headhunter is just ridiculous, right? And super, super pricey. So we do this, and this is how it looks like. I'm going to leave this breach alone just for a little bit. I'll sacrifice myself, and then we'll go up, and we do the rest with without the Headhunter. So I'm going to unequip it. I'm still capped, but you can see now I'm at a lot more reasonable speed, right? So boom, and we're still very, very fast. This is how I played for the last 3 days, and it has been just absolutely awesome. And it is just as smooth, and it's around about 16 attacks per second instead of 17 to 24. And then you go in, you do this. Now, Headhunter does have other advantages that are defensive. For example, like there is a chance that something absolutely one-taps me. I do have a little bit of extra deflect to kind of solve that, but it is a possibility. I am, however, chaos resistance capped. There's something going on here. I'm not really sure what, but we got it. So this is how it looks without it. Keep going. Yeah, I think you kind of got the gist, but this is what I'm farming all day with this build. This is what I've been farming without Headhunter. Now, without Headhunter, I would probably advise you, if you do like super juicy maps like this, maybe leave an extra portal open just in case you get one shot. It didn't really ever happen. I'm currently level 96. Maybe I'm being paranoid about it, but it can happen, right? Theoretically. And yeah, just a little bit more here, and I think we should be at the end of the map. I'm actually going to skip this breach just so we can quickly move on. That's kind of the gist. That's the maps you're going to farm if you have enough currency put into this build. Most builds do require quite a bit of investment to be able to cope with this juice, and especially if you don't have a Rakiata, I would highly recommend to stay away from all the res maps. Don't re-roll them, just leave them to the side until you have Rakiatas, and then use them later. The second map is just as important. It's the pathing map. Where was it actually? Let's just take something random, okay? Sure, whatever, doesn't really matter. These are the maps where you're just gonna path through, right? And you need to get somewhere. And it's not that big of a deal, but it is a big deal that you get out of there as fast as possible. Like, you need to get the hell out of there before it gets annoying. And so this is also a part where this build very much excels at. And these maps, you actually don't need a lot of investment at all to do. The first one is where most of your investment will come in, and this is like where this build lives, no matter what the investment. You will absolutely obliterate whatever you do here. Once again, I'll put off the Headhunter because it literally doesn't matter, right? You're just going to blast through here. Just absolutely blast through. As you can see, I only have my left mouse button. You can see right here, this is a perfect example once again. If you get stuck by some pebble, dodge roll, it's done. It has very good pathfinding. I don't know when this got changed, but it is actually very nice to do. And you will have to do it quite a bit in some of the shittier layouts, and that's unfortunately part of the experience. It is what it is. So yeah, you just waltz through, you get to the end, and your maps will be between 20 and 30 seconds. I'm not even looting, just so we can get this done a little bit faster. So sometimes you have to refresh your buff, obviously, and it's just the same thing. If these are the kind of maps you're doing, non-juiced, like not super, super hard, you can literally do this on a low budget, right? Like, these maps are not going to make you rich, and I hope you understand that. Watch some of Fupgun's videos if you haven't already. He has really good breakdowns of certain currency farming setups. But yeah. And the last one is bosses. This build is not crazy at bosses. You will not see it one-shot anything other than map bosses, obviously. But it does what it's supposed to do. Also, do remember that if you were there last league, the bosses are now a lot easier, like the unlock bosses. But in general, if you want to start this on a lower budget, let's say, then you should have the bosses already figured out. Otherwise, you're not going to deal that much damage. I'm quickly going to do this here. As you can see right now, we're just kind of chilling. I don't even have my staggering up. Let's do this. Okay, so now we have the staggering up. I'm not going to gem swap even out of Nova projectiles or anything like that. We're just kind of gonna do it raw, but I'll quickly get to the boss. Now, if I was smart, I would now go with my Headhunter buffs to the boss and just kind of one-shot him or like deal a lot more damage, but we're going to turn it off so you can kind of get a little bit of a gist of it. All you want to do is at the start, apply the mark, then Tempest Flurry him, shock him, and you want to staggering palm to stun him. Otherwise, you don't get the buff. So we apply the mark right at the start, boom, and now you go in and you do this, and you see its stun bar fill up, fill up, fill up, and I'm frozen for some reason. I'm stupid, doesn't matter. And he got stunned, and now we put down our bell, and you can see, boom, it's dead. I don't know why I got stunned. That was kind of stupid. Oh, I got stunned because okay, I didn't have my anti-stun charm. All right, so, okay. But you get the gist. And this is where investment and having really good gear comes in. The other map that I showed you, you can literally do on whatever you want. You can do this on, I don't know, fucking 5 divines, 10 divines, whatever. You need to get your helmet and like a little bit of extra gear. But if you want to do stuff like this, yeah, this is not as efficient as some of the other builds at bossing. For gear, we crafted this one today. A perfect Mirror tier Dreaming Quarterstaff can go up to 1,660 PDPS, I think it is. This one is currently 1,329, so very high as well. You should be looking for anything around about 1,000 DPS. Now, if you can't get physical, that's fine. Lightning would be the next best you could get. And after that, fire and cold are also okay, but not all that great. You want the +6. Onslaught gives 20% skill speed and 10% increased movement speed. I already have so much increased attack speed that almost makes no difference, and movement speed doesn't do anything for us. So I'm thinking about getting either stun buildup or stun duration there. It would be very comfy for bossing, but we'll have to see about that. Everything else is just about as much DPS as possible, other than your runes. So in your rune slot, you would rather have percentage physical damage. It would come out to more DPS overall, but attack speed is, once again, also the way you propel forward. So this also doubles as kind of like movement speed runes. Constricted Command needs to be on 5. Require 5 fewer enemies to be surrounded. Currently, it's actually better to buy a shitty one and then divine it yourself, but it does include RNG, so you can get unlucky, but it is a 1 in 4 chance, just straight up. The other mods, all attributes, life, they're okay, but that is the only mod that matters. And in case you don't know, I made a video about it like on day 2 of the league or whatever, but yeah, Surrounded just gives you a ton of extra stats. Attack speed, a ton of extra increased damage, ton of extra increased evasion rating, and then also fixes your it also fixes your mana completely. The only thing you might be asking is, why do I take Frantic Fighter? Because it reduces my accuracy, and the answer is it gives 100% increased attack damage though. It's like, that's the one thing where I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll get my speed down a little bit. This gives me round about 20% more damage. Next up, Ascendancy. We have a little bit of a tri-attribute stacking thing going on, and that's not really all in, right? We don't use a lot of these stats, and you will see my rings don't really have any stats. They just have resistances and rarity and whatnot. It's mostly just I'm using the most efficient attribute stacking thingies. So dexterity gives +8 to accuracy, right? So if we just look at Ascendancy with 126 all attributes, that's also dexterity times 8. That's 1,000 flat just from that. And then you also get the life from strength. You get evasion from intelligence with the new Winter Owl node, and also the Keystone Nightly Tenets. But on top of that, you're also getting, this is currently bugged, so it doesn't actually work, gain accuracy equal to your intelligence in theory. You can anoint Finesse, which gives accuracy rating equal to intelligence, and you also get Nimble Strength with accuracy equal to your strength. And yeah, this strength gives you an extra 700 life. So yeah, just all of these things combined kind of make it worth. And all of these things combined also make it worth to use Hand of Wisdom in action, which is just a little bit of extra attack speed and a little bit of extra flat damage. These are definitely replaceable if you have perfect like accuracy, increased effect of runes. You can get like 90% accuracy just from runes, and then get more rarity, right? Get maybe some life, some evasion. But you need some crazy good gloves to replace this. As our body armor, we have just high evasion as possible, and then just as many resistances as possible. Now you will see that I have a ton of resistances and have to forego stacking more attributes, and that's because of Headhunter. Headhunter In this slot, for a while, I had just life and triple resistances, and all things were good. But once Headhunter comes into play, not just that it's expensive, you now also have to fix your res everywhere, and that's pretty rough. So I have Chaos Res mostly from my runes. If you don't know, runes are very efficient to solve your Chaos Res. It's 11 per point, whereas it's 14 per all the other resistances, which doesn't exactly line up. It's really strong. I also have one in here. Try to get reduced slowing potency of debuffs on you on the implicit. And if you can't afford a Headhunter, this is how a belt would look like, for example, that you would use otherwise. The only mods that matter is that you have 2 charm slots, which, by the way, you can divine this patch with this one right here. Omen of the Blessed, then press a Divine Orb on your item, and it will only affect the implicits. Just so you know, a lot of people are spending way too much on their belts. First thing, but the reason I'm talking about Headhunter here and why I'm including it in this build, which you might find odd, is because it's actually so much better for this build than for any other build for a few reasons. We can use all the melee stuff, the AoE, and the skills fire additional projectiles because we're part melee and then part projectile based. And there is a mod here that gives 200% increased accuracy rating, which some of the clips in the intro, I will probably have included Headhunter and non-Headhunter footage, but that's why you go from like 16, 17 attacks per second to like 24 or so. It is completely ridiculous, and this is not just the biggest chase item in the game right now. For this build, it's even more so. For me, the build went from really good to ridiculous. As for boots, this is an interesting one because we technically don't need movement speed, but if you get stuck somewhere, let's for example say we're against this table, what you want to do is dodge. Because you're holding it down, right? You're really, really fast. I mean, you can move out of the way, right? But sometimes you don't react fast enough. What you do is simply dodge roll, because dodge roll has really good wayfinding. And dodge roll does still depend on your movement speed a bit. So you want a bit of movement speed. If you can get like 30% movement speed here, obviously that's GG. Otherwise, yeah, cap your resistances, get as much evasion rating as possible. You will also see that I have to take rarity as every other mapper as well. If you don't use rarity, you're trolling, right? It is what it is. A lot of our suffixes and prefixes will have to go towards that stat. As for charms, there are a few that I currently can't afford because I just bought the Headhunter, but I will include it and I will update with some extra endgame items or maybe just update the planner. But Valako's Roar, like I said, it sometimes grants you Frenzy Charge, which is good enough. It's nice. Then we have the Flora Stone. This is a really shitty anti-stun thing. I just threw it in at some point. I just realized I should probably replace it. This one is also terrible. Immunity to freeze, immunity to stun, and then Valakos. For Life Flask, Orov's is great to give you a little bit of extra guard. Definitely recommend that one. For Mana Flask, just anything with recovery. We're not pressing it, but it looks good, right? Regarding jewels, I would call one of them mandatory and the rest aspirational. Heroic Tragedy is extremely, extremely strong. All you need is the line that says Deeds by the Line of Olroth. That's all you need, right? That converts the Keystone. As you can see, I'm not taking anything in this radius. I'm not taking, like, you don't need to sort for it. It's not like a PU1 situation, right? You just need the Keystone, the end. It needs to say Olroth. There's currently a bug where if some small nodes are in the radius of this jewel, they don't get the Titan buff for some reason. I have no clue why, and I tested it. It's not just like a visual thing. It actually gives you less. So for example, this node would be very nice. It would free up some jewels, but we can't really take it. So it is what it is. Just know that. Megalomaniac, there are a ton of different notables that are very strong. Amongst them is Martial Artistry, Overwhelm, anything that gives you increased damage or obviously accuracy. So you can see right here, if I put this here, I get Martial Artistry allocated. And the second one I get allocated is Overwhelm. Not the best one because it has reduced attack speed, but it does have stun buildup and increased damage, right? So anything to do with that is wonderful. In general, you don't really want to go for lightning damage because remember that your Staggering Palm is physical. So you want to go for general attack damage or increased damage with two-handers or quarterstaffs or yeah, whatever you can find. And if your weapon is full fizz, you can also go for stuff like physical damage. But it won't affect the Tempest Flurry, whatever. Okay, so then we have the Against the Darkness, which is very important for one reason, the Spirit. So if you put it here, you get 3 times the bonus. It's pretty good, right? Like all the notables get +8 to Spirit. All you need is, and I think that's the low roll, yeah. All you need is 20 Spirit to put in all your stuff. The end, right? Otherwise, you'll have to cut one of the accuracies, which is not good. That is a lot of accuracy lost. And the second stat, whatever you can afford. Percentage dexterity is probably not the best. The best would probably be extra lightning or extra cold, but some of these are ridiculously expensive. So go for whatever you can. You can even fix your resistances maybe a little bit here. There's also notables that say small passives gain resistances, right? Whatever fits into your thing, and you don't need to divine it. You don't need the 12. You could maybe eke in another 10 spirit support. I'm probably going to do it eventually, but it's not like highly important. Now, then I made these jewels. The important thing about the jewels is this. 10% accuracy, or as much accuracy as you can. The roll range is, up to 10. And then chance to daze on hit. Chance to daze, what daze is it gives you more stun buildup. It is incredible. It's ridiculous. It's so goddamn strong on this build, and you want it as often as possible. If you can get slowing potency of debuffs on you very strong, anything that says attack damage is strong, or elemental damage, or physical, like all of these are good, but yeah, daze and accuracy is a big deal. As for the passive tree, I already talked about the weapon swap right here. So once again, we're going to type anything in so we make it a little bit easier to see. These are all attack speed, and these are on weapon swap 1, where all our damage is. The only thing that is on weapon swap 2, which is the green outline, is my mark, which will apply extra effect. And once again, this is very much up in the air. I haven't really tested it all that much. I just threw it in because I wanted to do something with it, and because it gives you a little bit extra boss damage, which could be good on low gear levels. But yeah, that's what you would do, and try out whatever you want. As for WASD versus mouse, this should be an important decision to make, but it really isn't. I just hold down my left mouse button and I have WASD. This is what I'm doing right now. I don't have to press anything. I have Tempest Flurry on my left click, and this is what happens. It's super, super responsive. Now, what happens when you put normal left click on and you move with left click, and then, for example, let's say you hold down 1 instead, is, for me, it sometimes stutters and just stops attacking. I don't know if it's a keyboard thing, if it's a thing in the options right here with the, what was it again? Input. Play around with it. Maybe you can find out how to use mouse, but I mostly don't use it anyways, and I'm already familiar with WASD, but you don't really need to do anything with WASD. It doesn't do anything. You might as well just, like, use your cursor, have WASD on, and, I don't know, like, maybe go to your stash like this. It really doesn't matter. As for leveling, this is the easiest leveling of all time. If you already chose this build, you will have an Ascendancy, and you will have the Surrounded Helmet, and they are required level 24 and 38. Think about that. At 38, you have your mana completely solved, and you can take nodes that give you like 100% increased damage. It is ridiculous. Simply ridiculous. And you're also a Titan, so you're going to get even more out of those small notables. So I made a planner, a Maxwell planner, around how to level this character. And yeah, you can kind of just go from there. And I'll quickly go over the leveling setup just so you know. I have a few notes in here, kind of tips and tricks. But yeah, overall, it's pretty easy to follow. There are 2 skill setups. And there are 2 gear setups. The first one is before the helm, and the second one is after the helm. So before the helm, Pillar of the Caged God, ton of increased damage. All you do is click strength nodes here. If you need int or you need dexterity, you can socket them in here, right? There's sockets for dexterity, sockets for int. You can also fill it out with resistances, whatever you want, right? You can pick them on the passive tree because you're using a quarterstaff skill, which is first Glacial Cascade until you go Tempest Flurry. Tempest Bell is going to be a little bit of extra single target damage. The supports are all in here. There's nothing really interesting there. I didn't 6-link it because I didn't want to waste it on Glacial Cascade. It did enough damage as it was. And so this is the first tree. Now, we start here, and the first thing is you're going to make a beeline down to the attributes because you're Pillar of the Caged God. You're also going to take this, and what you want to do is you want to spam your slots full with useless skills and useless supports so you get the 5% movement speed and maybe also the 5% life and mana, whatever you want, however much time you have, but definitely the movement speed. That's super important, and then you just move on, and at some point, you're gonna get into the surrounded nodes, and then you start taking these surrounded nodes. At this point, you wanna have as many, as you can see right here, I just take all the increased damage. The evasion is not really necessary at this point because we're in campaign, you're not really gonna die. Or at least I don't think so. And after that, you're slowly going to just transition into Falcon Dive. You're going to go over to Resolute Technique. And in between, you take all these attribute nodes. Pretty self-explanatory. And then you slowly glide into the build I showed you today. You start out with North Paw. These are all items that are pretty easy to achieve. Min-maxers win here. Love your leveling gear. Every stat matters. Every stat makes you a little bit faster. If you aren't willing to, for example, go for like skill speed here, it will look a lot different. This amulet, a lot of people aren't using. It gives you a crap ton of regen. Cut it once you have the helmet, obviously, because mana won't play a role anymore. But before that, this is like 100 mana regen, right? Take care of your leveling gear. It's very important. Get, for example, 3 runes on your pillar. It's a big difference, especially early. Tabby, this doesn't currently work in the Maxwell planner. Just so you know, this is how Tabby looks like. Tabby is not runes, as a lot of people think who've never used it before. Tabby sockets jewels into it. And that means movement speed. You can have 6 times 2% movement speed. And here is where you can also throw in quarterstaff damage. This one is not that great. Otherwise, attack speed, right? Elemental damage, attack damage, all the things you can get. If you want 4 stats, you're not gonna. It's too expensive, too hard to craft. But 2 to 3 stats, the movement speed is definitely not negotiable. And I have this here in the notes as well. Another note I would say is buy an Ascendancy carry if you want to do this as fast as possible. At level 20, somebody can carry you through a Ascendancy trial, a last tier 1, and you can TP to them, and if they kill the boss, you get all your Ascendancy points. If you don't want to do that, then you can also just do them yourself, sure, but I mean, you save so much time, and you can level with all your setup, right? All the increases from your Ascendancy, which is super, super nice. And then as for the weapon, this one really depends. I made this one myself. This is this one. Requires level 36, and it has like a ton of fizz damage, a little bit of lightning, increased damage, attack speed, plus 2 melee skills. So you can do this once again with the essences I showed you earlier. But if you don't want to do that, buy one or stick with Pillar a little bit longer. But Pillar got nerfed last patch, so it's not as good as it used to be for leveling. At some point, it will fall off. Now, obviously, you'll also have Ascendancy and stuff like that. And there's obviously a ton of like expensive gear in this leveling setup, but these are already items you're going to use anyways, right? If you plan to play the build anyways. So there's basically that. There's also a few gear choices I didn't include there just because it wasn't really necessary. There is like glue items, I call them. That's between those 2 setups. At level 11, you probably want to swap to Wanderlusts for a little bit extra movement speed from Luminous Pace. Or in between, you want to change your rings constantly because Blackheart is good at the start, but at some point you just want flat damage, flat damage, flat damage. And that's also important, right? Get as much flat damage as you possibly can because Pillar doesn't have anything. And you see the increased weapon damage there. It doesn't do anything if it has nothing to multiply off of, right? So that's why the rings are important. So you can buy like one for in between. Thrill Steel gives you Onslaught. I use this one from level 27 up to when I get the Mana Helmet. Otherwise, Tabby I used all the way through, and that's kind of how it is. The first skill setup is Glacial Cascade. I do use Upheaval here and just a few damage supports, you can see. And once I get Tempest Flurry, you can use Tempest Flurry. Now, I'm sure there's more efficient ways. I'm not a racer. I don't really care, to be completely honest. I just want to play the skill I want to play as soon as possible. Do note at the start, you're still reliant on movement speed. You're not gonna waltz around with attack speed. You don't have any attack speed. It's still just a normal skill, and you're gonna move around. You're gonna have the movement speed from your Tabby jewels and from a few other things, but don't think about that until way later. That's something you have to set up over time. So stun build up. Okay, he got stunned. Oh, his stun meter resets, so I can do this. Alrighty. At that point, like, might as well do something else. Oh, shit. Yeah, Bell is still insane. I should always put down a Bell. I don't know what I'm doing. God, no mana cost is so stupid. God, no mana cost is so nice. Bitch. Dude, the Bell literally stuns him. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. This time a little bit more of an expensive build. I hope this is something that can motivate some people even through the obnoxious tower system that still wasn't changed. Unfortunately, I'm feeling it myself a little bit, but this build is just too much fun and it motivates me to keep playing. I even grinded out the Headhunter and everything, and it's just really, really fun. And so yeah, maybe I could motivate you to stick around for a few more days, try and make it work. But yeah, even if you don't want to play it, maybe you learned something. Maybe you're going to try it another time, although this build is not surviving until next league. I can tell you that. There's going to be some changes there. But with that being said, since I still don't have a slogan, see you next time.